Hey everybody, welcome back. As promised, I'm going to do a video on remote ID. Before I get too far into this, I am DAG, that's my nickname, and I'm obsessed with giant scale radio control aircraft. And I've been obsessed with it for 12 to 15 years-ish. And I've been flying model aircraft from about 1979, started in gliders. So as you can tell, I have a massive passion for being able to operate my radio control aircraft in our national airspace, okay? So the reason I'm doing this video is I wanted to do it in a very simplistic way for what remote ID means to me. And you've heard me probably say 100 times on my channel, I'm trying to produce information that can help you, but things I have had success with. I hate to speculate, as I've said many times, because I've had people before say, try this, and I go out and try it and it doesn't work. And then I realize, well, they never tried it, and it's a waste of my time and money. But before I get too far into this, I kind of want to share a little video I created of kind of what remote ID over this last 4 or 5 years since we've heard about it has kind of subliminally put into our minds. So we see the word government, and everybody's freaking out like, oh no, we're not going to be able to fly. We see pictures of the Capitol. But the reality of this is we have to fly in the airspace with all the manned aircraft, okay? I mean, everything out there's got to get along. There's pilots that, have to fly. There's passengers. There are these hot flight attendants that's got to be happy. We've got enthusiasts. Here's a gal that's just obsessed. She's that girl that loves twin aircraft. This girl just loves to walk in slow motion away from airplanes. But when you start thinking of putting a radio in somebody's hands, especially kids' hands, keep in mind that same drone right there has to operate in the same national airspace with everything else. And we want all these people involved in our national airspace. We want commercial. We want hobby. I mean, this drone right here, this guy is going to make millions of dollars off being a videographer with cameras strapped and stuff. We're going to have these things delivering packages and crashing into our houses. We're going to have all kinds. It's going to be an orgy in the sky. We're going to have manned vehicles killing people as they slam into the side of buildings. It is going to be crazy what is going to be happening to our airspace in the next 50 years. So when you think of the proverbial orgy of things in the sky, we have to have a way to navigate that. I'm extremely happy actually with the way the remote ID rules came out, and a lot of people aren't. I'm just talking about my own personal belief. They could have very easily, and I think a lot of us are afraid of this, to say that you're only going to be able to do like fly at a club field and that's it. No other questions. And those club fields are only going to be designated by the government. So let's get in to this. And again, as I'm explaining this, I'm telling you what it means for me. This is just what remote ID means for me and how I'm going to continue, excuse me, flying RC aircraft. And I beg you, there's all kinds of stuff, which is their website. If you want to go to the FAA's website, you can find everything in the world about remote ID right now, okay? But you really need to take your time and open your mind up to what some of this stuff means. And I also am going to discuss what they originally proposed and what we have actually got from us 50 to 60,000 people writing in saying, you can't commercialize the sky and forget about the hobbyist, okay? And that's what we really are as hobbyists. And that's one reason we need to be on our best behavior. We need to make sure that the FAA understands that hobbyists can operate aircraft safely and that we're not breaking a lot of rules. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me on this and say, DAG, how can you actually be for this rule? It's not if I'm for it or not. We have speed limits on the interstate. We have so many rules in life and so many things that we have to obey. It's just life. In our airspace, we all knew it was going to happen. I mean, I remember when we thought we were going to lose our FM frequencies because they started going to narrow band, and everybody thought that we wouldn't be able to fly model aircraft, and that was, 30 years ago, and we're still flying model aircraft today. But I would ask you to go to the website and read for your own what this means. But I'm going to tell you the most simplistic way to look at this, at least for me. There's going to be basically 3 types of way that we're going to be able to fly in the national airspace. One is you buy a drone that's going to come with a remote ID module already built into it, and you're going to register it and you can fly it. The other one is where you're going to buy the little transmitter and put it in your drone, register it, and fly it. And the other one is we're going to fly at FAA recognized identification areas, which are basically club fields that have registered with the FAA. Okay? Now, you notice I've used the word drone all the time right now, not RC airplane. By the definition of the FAA, anything that is remotely operated basically is a drone. And I'm saying that in a very general way. But our radio control helicopters, quads, drones, airplanes, turbines, they're all considered drones under the FAA. Okay, it's really just that simple. So when I look at this, this does not freak me out at all. Do I think there's a problem with clubs? Yeah, I think there's a problem with some clubs because they're run by jerks and know-it-alls and people who probably have micro penises and have no idea how to get along with people. Probably even their dogs hate them. Okay, and that's pretty bad. If your dog hates you, you're a pretty horrible human being. But there are other clubs that are fantastic. But what I want to do is I want to talk about a couple of things real quick here. Is in the first column, it's built into the drone. And after a certain date, and I'm not going to get into dates deep in this video. Okay, I'm telling you what this means for me. When you buy a ARF one day, it's going to have a remote, after a certain date, it's going to have a remote ID module built into it. Okay? But when you buy this little box and you register it to you, from my understanding, and you might be able to point me out that I'm wrong here, but I've talked to a couple of FAA people about this, and if you read the 400-page document, it's pretty clear that that module, once you register, you can move it from plane to plane. And to buy a module, let's say it's $100. Okay? I know people that would complain that they might have to pay $100 for a brand new car. And they'd be like, what's wrong with it? $100, and I know, look, everything is relative when it comes to money. You know, I've always said that compared to a homeless person, I'm probably considered rich, but compared to Elon Musk, I'm pretty much in poverty. That $100 box, or whatever it's going to be, for me to pop that in my airplane, be able to fly my airplane virtually anywhere within uncontrolled airspace, I think it's kick-ass. I've had so many people reach out to me and say, I'm never going to be able to fly on my farm ever again. That is not true. With this little box, you could fly on your farm as long as your farm is in uncontrolled airspace. Okay, I want to point out another couple of things. With the box that you put into your airplane in the middle column, you are limited to visual line of sight operations. It's because the certain amount of telemetry it's spitting out is different than the one that's built into the drone. But if I'm reading this right, in the left-hand column, it's not going to have to be visual sight. So that's where the FPV guys might really be having a kick-ass time in the future, that they aren't going to have that visual line of sight. Now, here's where I think there's going to be a complete, I'm trying to keep my words clean here, everybody. I actually have a very foul mouth, but because of my YouTube, and I know kids watch this, I really try hard to be a very good ambassador for you. But here's one of the problems. The FAA has some pretty clear, the AMA, Academy of Model Aeronautics, has some pretty clear rules on how to be a part of that and follow the rules and have the insurance. In that left-hand column, the FAA is pretty much saying you can fly out of, the limited visual line of sight operations. My opinion from what I've read. I might be wrong. So there's going to be certain things that we're going to realize are happening once this is launched and becomes law in a couple of years, or implemented in a couple of years. That's going to create some confusion between the FAA and the AMA. And that I believe that will get all worked out. But there will be people who buy drones in that left-hand column who live on a farm and pretty much can do whatever they want as long as they're in uncontrolled airspace and following the rules of the FAA. You don't even really have to care about the AMA at that point. Now I'm a lifetime member of the AMA, and I love the insurance, and I love what they've been trying to do. Okay, and what they have done. I always mention that they don't get enough acknowledgement for what they've really done. But here's something that I think is going to be interesting. This right here, anyone can fly there. So these federal FAA recognized identification areas is basically our AMA clubs. Or it's going to be any community-based organization club in the future. But when it says anyone can fly there, does that mean that under the FAA that I don't have to be a member of that club to be able to fly there because it shows up on the FAA's website as a FAA recognized identification area? That could be a place that creates a little bit of friction, because the FAA is now saying, we've given you these places to fly. You can fly there. And a boy and his dad shows up saying, hey, you're on the FAA website. And they're going, wait a minute, you're not club members. You can't fly here. There could be some lawsuits come out of that, because just it's clear as mud in some ways. Now, when you start to dive into some of this stuff, and I'm not going to go deep in this, I'm talking about what this means for me. Originally, if you look at the center column is what the FAA wanted, and on the right is what we as model aircraft flyers or drone flyers, non-commercial drone flyers, what we really got. This is from those 50 or 60,000 people who wrote in. So originally it was going to be only the community-based organization fields that people could fly at. They added educational institutions. And what I love about that is if a high school had a model aviation club, or a university has a model aviation club, and has a field out back and wanted to designate that as one of the FAA recognized the FAA recognized areas to fly, you can do that. I think that was a big win. Another one was, when can somebody apply for the FRIA? It was only going to be a 12-month period, and once it was ended, they weren't going to allow any more. That was total crap. So now they changed that. There's no deadline to apply. Okay, and then the last one I'm not going to dive into is, where can a FRIA be established? That is really, it's all in the 470-page document that is out there. Now, effective dates, and I'm not going to go into all of this. I'm just going to pop it up there for you to look at it. But basically, there's certain dates that all this stuff is becoming implemented, and we are going to have to start adhering to. Okay, so we all knew this date was coming. If you fly in an AMA field, this will not affect you. If you are flying in your backyard or in your farm, it will start to affect you. And the best way to understand this, and this is where fun goes to die, is in this document that is 470 pages, and it is clear as mud. But it does make sense if you read it and read it and read it, which I hate to read. And then we've got the duration, and this is something that I think is going to be really a problem, in my personal opinion, is basically once you get your FAA recognized identification area approved, that's only for 48 months. And then you've got to redo it. And if you don't have a club that is on top of dates and keep redoing that, you could become a non-legal flying spot. And this is where, look, everybody, you know I try to stay positive. I don't try to ever get negative. But there are some really crappy clubs out there. And the people that run them were, basically went to school with Thomas Edison. They're older than dirt. And these people, I had a club that I wanted to pay 3 years of dues. They go, you can't pay 3 years of dues at once because we can't track that. You have to pay your dues in January every year. And I'm like, why can't I just pay 3 years? You can't pay it. And why would you want to pay 3 years? And I said, because I don't want to have to worry about it for the next 2 years. And it became an argument. And then I was kind of like, well, why does he want to pay for 3 years? Is he rich? Clubs are inherently good people, but there are some that are so toxic that when I start thinking of the FAA and these people playing in the FAA's realm, there could be a lot of clubs that just go away because people didn't fill out the paperwork right. And people like you and I that don't want to be part of the club politics show up one day and there's a chain there and it's locked and you're like, what the hell? Why can't I fly at my favorite club? It's because, Grandpa Walton didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to do the paperwork for the FAA. Okay. And like I said, I'm not going to go into a lot of this, but this is talking again about how to get recognized as the FAA recognized identification area. But the way I want to kind of close this down, everybody, or start to bring this to an end, is that there's basically going to be 3 ways that we can fly model aircraft. The one on the right is what 99% of us, well, I shouldn't say that. The one on the right is probably what 60% of us do. Because I know a lot of people that will never join a club because they've been treated like dog crap. So the one on the right, if you fly at a club, you have nothing to worry about. But if you want to fly on the dirt road behind your house, or you want to fly on the farm that you own, you're probably, to be legal, are going to need to buy the little box that's in the center column there. Okay? Now, here is the reality of this. I know there's going to be an absolute boatload of people that will still fly on their farms and still fly in their backyards and all of this stuff. And I get that. We don't know yet, because there's going to be a difference in the way that I think they would come down on you. Now, I don't know this. This is the way I look at it for me. If I were to go fly in a cornfield, not a cornfield, I mean, on a farm, and I didn't have the box, and that farm is 150 miles from any airport, that farm is just in the middle of nowhere, I doubt anybody's ever going to know you're flying there. But if you're going to go to a parking lot of a high school on the approach to LaGuardia and fly, and they catch you, they may make an example out of you and give you something like a $20,000 or $30,000 fine. So for me, I've always been a safety freak, and I've always been by the rule person. I'm going to buy that little module in the middle, and I'm going to fly in uncontrolled airspace where I'm allowed to fly. And there's going to be apps on our phones that are going to clearly show where we can and can't fly. There's already apps right now that pretty much show you where the uncontrolled airspace is and where you can fly. But once this is implemented, and this is law, it's going to be interesting to see how many people adhere to it. But for me, because that's what everybody asked me, what do I think about remote ID? It was going to happen no matter what. I've heard people blame it on the AMA. Well, because of the AMA, the remote ID became rules. No, had nothing to do with the AMA. They were coming anyway. When I think about 10 years from now, I mean, I try to say things constructively, people, okay? I don't try to get on here and, it's like people that go on Facebook and spend the whole day reposting all of this noise, thinking they're going to change anybody's mind. You don't have a chance. I try to give you information from my mind on how I think, and if you think, hey, DAG thinks like that, makes sense. So imagine this if you can. I've gone to a lot of cities where they thought they could make those electric bikes available where you slide the credit card in and you can ride an electric bike around, then you're going to replace it. The reality is probably 10 or 15% of the people use them, and there are piles of electric bikes that don't work or have been crashed or stolen or vandalized, just piled up all over the place in some of these cities. Okay? So I think 20 years from now, what is the national airspace going to look like? Well, somewhere there's going to be a warehouse with probably 1,000 Amazon drones that are just destroyed because they flew into the side of buildings or power lines or hit birds. Or who knows what's going to happen. When we start having delivery drones delivering everything through our sky, it's going to be a cluster. It's going to be a mess. And sometimes our dreams are bigger than reality. But what we as model aviation enthusiasts have to do is not become part of that noise. We've got to do it safely. We can't do stupid things. We need to show to the government that our hobby has a lot of great people involved in it in the past. Neil Armstrong, Hoot Gibson. When you think of some of the big names, Burt Rutan, when you think of the big people that are part of model aviation, we need to be ambassadors for model aviation wherever we are. And look, I know quads and FPV have really given us a little bit of a bad name because of a couple of dipshits. Okay, I get that. I mean, when these kids would get into New York City and fly their drones around the bridges or around the buildings, I think they should be fined $50,000. And because what that's going to do is it's going to make people realize there are rules. Okay? And we can't let one or two people ruin it for all of us, especially somebody like me who flies planes that are $5,000 or $6,000. That's an investment. It's blood, sweat, and tears. So we can't let a couple of idiots change everything. But we need to think about, just for a minute, that the drones, the quads with their gyro stabilization and everything did make it easier for just about anybody to fly. So it was inevitable that we'd end up with a couple of jackasses that would get those, put the FPV on, and go out and do stupid things with, and kind of give us all a little bit of a bad name. But I know an awful lot of drone FPV and drone pilots. One of the best videographers I know, a guy named Eamon, who flies with me anytime we're at this one fly-in because he does the air-to-air video for me of my big planes. He follows the rules and is an incredible ambassador for model aviation. So we can't all get together like a witch trial and burn somebody at the stake because of one or two bad people. Okay? We've got to think about model aviation as a whole and how do we represent ourselves as a brand. And that's the reason I'm asking you, if you fly at a club field, have a blast. If you're going to fly off a club field, I would have that little box and I would make sure you stay in that uncontrolled airspace where you're allowed to fly. Trying to fly on the approach of O'Hare or LaGuardia or JFK is just going to make it bad for all of us. Okay? So that's what remote ID means for me, everybody. I mean, I've gotten a lot of people asking over the last couple of years and also asking why I haven't been more boisterous about this. The bottom line is we didn't lose the right to fly. And that's what I was really afraid of. I was really terrified that they could just basically say, the airspace is not yours, it's ours. And I think we won. I really do. I know a lot of people disagree with me, but when you look at this, I think we won. When I think about all the different things we want to fly, and as you know, I love to do my 3D animations, but when we think about all the things we fly, okay, helicopters, turbines, big airplanes, small airplanes, the quads, all the things we fly, we need to realize that there's going to be rules. Okay? There's just going to be rules. There's rules in everything. Okay? And without rules, you'd have total chaos. Okay? I mean, I know flying gives us a freedom like anything else. But I'll tell you, when you fly a full-scale aircraft, the moment you leave the ground, well, actually, the moment you untie your airplane, there are rules. Okay? There's rules when you're taxiing. There's rules when the moment you're in the air. There's rules everywhere, folks. You know, I know we enjoyed flying model airplanes and doing whatever we wanted virtually forever. But now there's going to be a little bit more rules. And I don't see that as being the end of all. Okay? So look, I didn't mean for this video to go quite as long as it did. It's just I'm very passionate about model aviation. And I'm passionate about common sense. Now, I did want to end this. I had somebody reach out to me and say that remote ID, when I actually have had 4 or 5 people reach out to me, said remote ID is going to destroy it for kids. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I've read through most of that 470-page place where fun goes to die. And I can't find a lot of age restrictions. If anybody has, put it in the comments here. Because all the age restrictions I find in the FAA is for full-scale aircraft. You know, like you got to be, 14 to fly a glider or solo a glider or something like that. And 16 to solo a powered aircraft. And, you know, I've seen things like that. But when it comes to buying that little box and putting it in the airplane, even if a dad or mom were to buy that little box and put it in an airplane and teach their kid how to fly, I don't understand how remote ID is going to destroy it for the kids. And I've had 4 or 5 people reach out and say, well, that's it for kids. Kids can't fly airplanes anymore. And I'm like, where did you read that? And please put it in the comments below if you can point out where it says that. And it might be you have to be a certain age to register with the FAA. And if that's true, I would still say to you that if you are a dad teaching your kid how to fly, use your number, be there with your kid, and let them, you know, learn to fly. If that's truly the rule that it says like a 13-year-old and younger couldn't fly, I don't think that applies at all at that club. Because at the club, you don't even have to tell the FAA what you're doing at the club. So now, we do have to register all of our aircraft with the FAA, but I've never seen, you know, the little sticker we put on our planes, I've never seen an age attached to that. So if somebody sees the age, but that's a rule I would break. And if the FAA is watching, hey, come put the cuffs on me, okay? Because I'm going to teach kids 6 years old and older. Even I'll teach a 2-year-old. A 2-year-old wants to sit there with a pacifier in their mouth, which, by the way, destroys your teeth. There's going to be a lot of expense. Think of this. Take that pacifier out, that money you're going to save on all those braces could buy you a turban one day. Because I've spent like 20 grand on my daughter's teeth. Oh, the airplanes I could own because of her teeth. But age, I don't think is going to be an issue, folks. And that is one rule I would break. So, hey, thanks for watching my videos, everybody. Thanks for all the generous comments. And I always end the videos with begging you to get kids into the air. And I mean, I had somebody joke with me. I said, get a kid into the air. I don't mean throw your kid in the air. Get kids flying model aircraft, okay? Don't throw your kids in the air. Have a great day, everybody. Rock on. And I'll see you next time. Be safe. Bye.